Man, that's downright mindful.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Did we just become best friends? Yep.
We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
I don't need backups. I'm going to Harvard.
Remember these words. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Do or do not. There is no try.
I still have a dream.
Welcome to Downright Mindful, a meeting place where we explore meaning, seek connections, and examine the relationships between people, events, and the ideas that shape our world. Hosted by me, Matt Paris, my friend and colleague Paul Sawswell, each episode will dive into thoughtful conversations that spark reflection and curiosity. Thanks for joining us. Now let's get right down to it.
And I already thanked him, Josh, for that 90s slow, mellow R&B beat.
Listen,
so
when he sent that to me, I wish y'all could have seen me because I was like, that is straight fire. I'm like, I want to redo my show. That is exciting, Matt. That's really phenomenal.
Let me tell you something I learned during the production of that. And of course, Derek Kinsey's a big part of that. He helps me put all that together, and he's really special when it comes to those kind of things. But we learned together that Dr. King is literally music when he talks.
Yes.
He drops in, incidentally, we drop him in the place we want him, but he's like a rapper falling in right in the pocket, man. And just, you know, you have to clip things and do this because you're concerned about time, and that's already a long intro, but like everything that you clip of him hurts, you know, because he's just a quote factory, like just meaningful, powerful leadership just oozing from a human. So that was tough, but it's like I often say, you know, creating like social media picture graphics and all this. I always tell people like, hey, you can't go wrong if you have a great photograph. Like if you start a social media graphic with a great photo, you can do almost anything and it'll be great. So when you start off something like that with a little R&B beat and you drop the King in there, like it's easy to make that sound good.
All right, well then, there we go, because we're talking about greatness today. Why is George Washington on Mount Rushmore? Articulate that, please.
Oh, well, where do I start? I mean, in history, we'll look at him as literally the OG. From my perspective, looking, 200 plus years backwards.
We're about to celebrate our 250th birthday. You know that, right?
Yeah.
2026. Every national park is going to have a celebration. So get out there, people. Make your reservations now.
Just reminded me it's been 50 years since 1976. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. Wow. Crazy, huh?
Yeah.
So you're saying OG. All right, remember that then. The first is a big deal. That first sets the precedence. But he was also pretty doggone good. But how does he compare to, you've got 40 plus more coming after him, and we set them side by side by side by side. But remember that idea of OG. We'll return. All right. Mm-hmm. Who are those other three guys on Mount Rushmore?
Lincoln.
Yep.
It's up there.
He's on the other side. Keep that in mind. Mm-hmm. So you've got this guy who creates the country, and you've got this other guy who restores the country. That's not an accident. Left, right. All right, so who's in the center?
Gosh, I wish you'd asked me this in the fourth grade. Is it Thomas Jefferson?
It is.
It is.
And then who's the other fellow?
It's General Grant. Is that correct?
It is not.
It is not. Okay,
No.
Then you're going to have to help me.
Josh, do you know?
No, but I know Grant's on Stone Mountain.
No. He's
No?
not. Those are all Confederates on that mountain. Oh, my word. You just desecrated
Goodness, and this
Ulysses
is on
S.
a
Grant.
recording, too. Goodness. Oh,
Both of you.
God.
Am I going to have to give this answer? No, you have to at least give three more presidential guesses of who's on Mount Rushmore. Because obviously you haven't seen it for yourself.
I have not been to the Grandfather Mountain. I've not.
To the Black Hills of South Dakota, which is like, I mean, for the Sioux that lived there, that was once their ancestral homeland. Like, that's sacred ground. They're never going to get that back. But we've made it this American site. So we're going to put 4 guys on there. We're talking greatness. Who is that third guy?
What year is this under construction?
Not a chance in the world I'm going to tell you anything else until you guess 2 more presidents.
Because
even though it's an excellent question.
I have
It's
a guess.
question.
This is a guy that's quite a bit later than the other 3.
Okay.
That's Teddy Roosevelt.
He's not later. He's on Mount Rushmore. He's the other guy.
Yeah, but I'm talking about in chronology, he's later than.
You got the beginning, you got the 3rd president, you got the 16th. And then you're right, he's down the list.
That's what I meant.
At 20, but he's not that far gone.
No.
So our first 100 years, the 100 plus, you got these 4 guys. Now some would say, Teddy, it's so close to it being built, Teddy gets himself in the mix because he's like this most recent. Do we still put him up there if you're going every president lined up and he makes it in the top 4? I mean, there's definitely some things. So I'm going to ask these questions. Why is Thomas Jefferson on Mount Rushmore?
I mean, just a guess as a history student wannabe. Is it because he wrote or penned sort of the foundation of our laws?
Are you guessing, or did he?
He did.
He did. I mean, it's the dang Declaration of Independence. Now, don't forget, like the John Adams and the Ben Franklins are helping him draft the first one. And then they kind of send him off and go, hey, finish this up, man, bring it back to the Continental Congress. And that's why we give Jefferson so much credit for this. But I mean, like, there are some brilliant minds working on this. Yeah. But I mean, also, remember, as president, our country doubles because he purchases something. What did he purchase?
Louisiana?
Yeah. So, I mean, like,
I feel like I'm taking a history test.
Good job, dude. Well, I mean, like, this is going somewhere, because then I'm going to ask you a super opinionated question, but you have to back it up. So you said George is on there because he's an OG. Mm-hmm. Can you sum up why Thomas Jefferson is on there? Because his words are that powerful? Can I sum up what you said in that phrase and you be at least comfortable with it?
Yeah, I think so. And not because he always tickled the ears of the public, because if I'm a nerd at all, I know at times he was a pretty, I don't want to say divisive is not the right word, but he had his people that didn't care much for what he had to say in the time he spent.
Sure, everybody had
like
opposition.
Exploring, like, what wasn't he the guy that was like sort of in his personal life, he's adopting a lot of like French culture and spending a lot of time.
He's a Francophile.
Yeah. But just with the information that I have, which is not very super high level history, I would say that has to have something to do with it.
Well, let's plant that in the ground.
Okay.
OG words.
Pretty important words.
Why is Teddy Roosevelt on Mount Rushmore?
All right. This is opinionated. This is.
I mean, you got to give some.
I'm just guessing.
You got to back your opinions up.
I didn't get to study for this, but I would say
you've been living the American life for how long? 4 decades. Come on, man.
I'm not crazy suited in Teddy R's specific politics. I can throw out some like we have national parks because of this guy.
Yes.
All of the preservation of nature and the study of animals. Like,
do you know the name John Muir? M-U-I-R.
I don't.
I've heard of that.
Yes.
I can't tell you what, but important guy. I remember
he invites Teddy Roosevelt out to like Yosemite, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, come out here, see this, and now, hey, you got to preserve this.
Yeah.
Now, John Muir also passed through the Hiwassee River, and in his journals wrote about the beauty of our area as well. So this guy is an immigrant. He comes to this country. He travels from coast to coast, but he becomes that voice in that generation that inspires that guy who can put this in motion. And then our park systems will, when Woodrow Wilson, 2 presidents later, he's the one putting the stamp on it, and Congress says, let's preserve this land. Mm-hmm. But it's Teddy Roosevelt who initiates this stuff. I mean, this guy would go on adventures even while he was president. Hey, we'll hear from you in a month. I mean, that's crazy to think about today. But he is this conservationist. He's this guy that negotiates peace between Russia and Japan and wins the Nobel Peace Prize. Go with me on this. Like, this is the first time an Asian power defeats a European power since, like, Genghis Khan. And our guy, Teddy, is the one negotiating the peace treaty. Kind of a big deal. He's also the one that gets the Panama Canal dug. Following what I'm saying here? I mean, this guy has his hands all over the globe.
You know, he's a pretty hard guy to handle.
Yes.
Personally.
Yes.
Like, he's almost divisive in nature. He's invasive in your thought. He's drinking a pot of black coffee to help with his asthma, and he walks fast. I always think
you know some stuff.
I've read a Teddy R biography. I always think of Nat Akiona when I think of Teddy R because of the way other people would write about the pace alone at which he walks. People have written that they nearly have to jog to keep up with this pretty small in stature man. But he was that drip. He was just a ball of energy.
George, OG, Thomas, powerful with the pen. Teddy Roosevelt, just this powerful aura that he carries with him. Yeah. Okay, keep this in mind. You're crafting this. Okay, this isn't me. These are your words.
I feel like you're putting this together.
I am. There's a plan.
Objection.
There's
Objection.
A plan. Okay.
He's leading the witness.
Lincoln. Why is he on Mount Rushmore?
Well, he took what should have probably, if we look back at this and removed our feelings and our emotions and all this, he took what was probably should have been a split in a country that created two, and he sort of was the guiding hand in nursing that through war. Accomplishing essentially what caused the split, bringing that to a peaceful resolution that it's going to help out a lot of people over time. And he's able to take people, and when I say people, I'm talking about half the population of a large country at this time that are so torn on their beliefs that they would go to war with their brethren and kin, and he's going to nurse them back into at least being able to be neighbors again.
Think about how powerful a reconciler you just described him as.
He is that.
Like, I am a lover of scriptures. I just the ancient Jewish and Christian scriptures, and one of these things, like, you know, I have a Church of God education when I talk about my college experience, you know, raised in the Pentecostal church, married into the Baptist family. So, I mean, like, these scriptures are sacred to me. But also, I've been raised in these traditions of, like, you have a calling. Find your calling. Whew. I mean, and for some of us, it just seemed like, man, there was a revelation, and now I'm pursuing this path. And for others of us who are a little bit more insecure, I mean, that turned into a burden of how in the world am I supposed to know what direction I'm going, and is it really God's will? And we could go there, but we're not going to camp out there. I'm going to resist that temptation. This is a tough temptation for me. Just go with me.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. But what I do understand is the one ministry that every believer shares is, in Corinthians, it says the ministry of reconciliation. Bringing people back to God and bringing people back to each other. I mean, that is a miracle unto itself, that you could have something severed and it come back and heal. Mm-hmm. That's how you describe Lincoln. So you have an OG?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, powerful with the pen. A poet on parchment. You got Teddy Roosevelt, this personality that you cannot ignore when he walks into this space. You cannot keep doing what you're doing when he arrives.
That's right.
And then you've got this other guy who probably doesn't have that same persona, but he still has that same power of bringing people together. Maybe even described as a healer of sorts, even though we're talking about presidents.
Yeah.
Now, here we go. You ready to craft something yourself?
Oh, I thought I just did. Okay.
You just created the frame. You just created the template.
Okay.
Now I'm going to let you choose. Music. Now, music could be musicians, could be singers. It could just be songs. Go with me, Liz. I'm going to let you choose books if you want to. You can choose magazines if you want to. You can choose any form of content creators. So we could go movies on this if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. You could go even a different direction if you wanted to do artists, if you wanted to do intellectual scholars, if you wanted to do podcast creators, if you wanted to do athletes, you could pick any sport. You could say just basketball players, just football players, or you could say all athletes of all time. Now, if this is too much information, I've got one prepared that I'm going to choose for you and see what you do with it. Okay, so I'm going to give you that
about to
option.
make a Mount Rushmore here?
I can bail you out. That's exactly what we're doing.
Okay.
You are about to make a Mount Rushmore, but here's your criteria, because otherwise it seems really random and people pick their 4 favorites. But whatever you end up choosing, you have to choose the OG.
I have to choose
As
an
you
OG.
see it.
Okay.
That person that comes out of their lips, out of their fingertips, and somehow crafts something that literally rocks the world. Not by their voice, not by their persona, but literally by their words. That third person is that monster personality that you cannot ignore. And then you've got this other subtle soul that just comes into spaces and brings everybody together. So my invitation is, you got to start somewhere. So pick something that you're super interested in, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
I'll help you craft this, but you got to pick the subject. That's where we're going with this.
All right, so you're saying, for example, if I choose music, I can choose my Mount Rushmore music person and plug them into any of those 4 spots. If they were hard to handle, I can plug them into Teddy R's spot. If they're an OG, I can plug. Okay.
Yep. There you
All
go.
right.
If you were going to do music, then who really brings people together in Lincoln's spot? And then who is, you better go here. And then who is that guy just by the power of those lyrics? Just, where did that just come from?
Okay, so
Are we going music?
I know what to do,
Okay.
but I'm going to have to explain it.
Okay.
I started off this conversation talking about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to plug him into, hear me out.
All ears.
I'm going to plug him into the man who could bring people together. But I'm going to preface that by saying he had to die to do it. Because as anybody within earshot of me would hear this, I would tell them, if he were alive today, many of my brethren, many of the people who I've spent a lot of time around growing up would despise him.
Are you aware that he was despised even in his lifetime?
I am.
Those last 3 years, opinion polls were out, and I mean, like, he was not well liked. He is hero worship now.
He's hero,
but
that's why I said he had to die to do it.
That's
because
right, and I understood what you meant.
The same people that I'm talking about that would despise him today, they, at least once a year, will post a beautiful quote that he had, and they'll at least visit the idea, whether it's for vanity or for self-reflection or whatever, that they are somehow trying to obtain some standard that he's laid forth in, whether it be in writing or within some of his beautiful speeches. Again, it's tempting to make him that lyricist. I'm not going to lie, because it's kind of like, and you're going to hear, this is nerd stuff, but like, I almost said it's kind of like listening to a Hank Williams song, but it's kind of like reading a Hank Williams song, because it's just as powerful, maybe more to me personally, to see his words without hearing, a 100-year-old production quality band or whatever. You still read those words and they are still meaningful and powerful and special. So I'm plugging Dr. King into the same spot where I would plug Lincoln into. The problem is, I think if Lincoln were alive today, he would at least gain some adoration from most people that I spend time with, but I do not believe Dr. King would. I think he had to die to get it. The hero worship part of it is...
Okay, Lincoln is hero worshipped. Is that because he died? He was killed? He was assassinated?
I think it has something to do with it.
Because, what does Reconstruction look like if Lincoln survives? Think about the 4 years with Johnson. There's even an impeachment. I mean, troops were in the South. Okay, so that's we're providing some sort of accountability for blacks being able to go to the polls now, becoming part of the actual political process. They're promised certain things like 40 acres and a mule. Mm-hmm. How are we going to actually enforce these things that are being promised, that people were once property and now they're citizens, guaranteed by certain things? I mean, how does Lincoln navigate that? I mean, that's totally different than war, because being a wartime president and being a peacetime president, two seemingly different experiences. So, I mean, you said that, so that makes me, man, do we hold Lincoln up that high if he doesn't get killed? Or does the next 4 years change his legacy somehow?
Oh, we also have to take into consideration, at the time he was killed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he's probably just about spent. I mean, so is King. His home life's getting really hard. Can he drift off into the sunset and have people sort of carry out some of his wishes or his vision while he's still kicking? Can that happen? I don't know.
Good question.
I don't know the answer to that.
We'll never know.
That's why we seek the answers. Maybe we don't find them. So MLK.
Hold on. What is even okay? So you just plugged King in, but what's our subject? Are you going with music, but yet you're putting his lyrics? No. Okay, I still don't know.
He's the reconciliator. He's bringing people back together.
What's our theme here? Our 4 people that you're about to plug in. What's your theme? Did you catch that part? You said you were going music, but you said you couldn't help yourself but put King in there. So where are you going next?
No. I didn't say music.
What'd you say?
I would plug him in. I don't know what's the category. What are we calling him? A civil rights activist or a political figure? Can I call him that?
He'd prefer to be just a preacher.
I know he would.
All right, so you're kind of going with lyricist, maybe. Maybe that's where you're going. I don't know. Do you want to do civil rights activist? You got to pick. Or just take your second person, and I want to see where you go.
Can it be more broad? Can it be someone in...
You're crafting it. Go.
Modern history.
Who you got?
Who is a voice in the... No, I'm still on Dr. King. I'm trying to put a...
Oh, my word. Are we going to get to the 3 other people?
Oh, I don't know. We're...
Oh, we have to get to the 3 other people.
Okay. All right. I'm going... This would seem shallow to some, but it's not shallow to Matt Paris. I'm going to take a cop-out on my OG. And I'm going to offer you the great Bill Monroe.
We just blew up a mountain. And we put Bill Monroe on one side, and we put Martin Luther King Jr. on the other side.
Yes.
Okay, you're going to have to explain.
Okay.
You're going to have to explain.
Bill Monroe.
I'm going into Canva at night and creating whatever image you're about to.
Bill Monroe, he's the father of bluegrass music.
Of course he is,
hillbilly music, and he's going to create literally his own genre, and he's going to do it just as the extra. He's got too many kids in his family, then they have instruments to go around. And he can't take this mandolin and play melody at the same time that his brother's playing the guitar and his sister's playing the fiddle, or however that shook out. But he literally is going to turn the mandolin into a percussion instrument and create a whole genre of music. So where he fits in his craft, he's as innovative as anybody I can think of in modern U.S. history. Someone that...
Okay, pause. That is a monster statement you just made. Will you repeat it, please?
Yeah, in his craft,
okay,
he is going to be as innovative. I'm saying it with my chest.
Yeah.
He is going to be as innovative as anybody in modern U.S. history.
Do you know how many innovators there are? How many craftsmen there are?
Yeah.
All right, you keep going. I'm all ears.
I mean, that's a big
I knew
statement.
you would throw someone out there like this, and I'd be like, what in the world?
Hey, you gave me the option.
I gave you wide open landscape, man. You're Bob Ross in this thing.
Yeah, and listen, the reason is there's a lot of OGs I could think of in several different crafts, and he's one of them, and there's not a lot of debate about it when it comes to his craft. Like if you step over into his world.
Is he also writing things? I mean, do you feel
He's
that
the
way
guy.
about the lyrics that he's putting to this new genre of sound?
I don't. I think if you lent to only his writing, he'd be very subpar. But if you lent to his composing and the way he comprehends music and the way he plans a whole, like each instrument playing in a different octave to create the ingredients of what he would call bluegrass music, it's just genius on accident. Well, I won't say it's on accident, but from the information I have right now, I don't think he was like, I've just created a whole genre of music. I think he was just doing what he liked and where he was fitting in where he could fit in and making what he's doing as good as he could make it. Now, he's going to have a whole class of people come behind him and want to be just like him, and it's going to create some of the biggest names, not only in bluegrass or hillbilly music.
All right, give that short list. Give me a fistful of people who come after him, and then you got to move on to your third person.
Well, the most recognizable for people around me listening would be the Ricky Skaggs and Keith Whitley duo that we talked about walking down a sidewalk the other day. These guys are just young dudes that have learned to play an instrument, and they have an ear and they can sing a little bit. And
all right, fill in the gap between Bill Monroe and those two fellas. Give me three more.
Three more
that fall in line with him.
Ralph Stanley. Ralph Stanley, he becomes one of those. He's the Ben Franklin in the Thomas Jefferson story. He's around and he's doing some things, but he's following. He's creating sounds that are a lot like Bill. And
two more.
And then Lester Flatts and Earl Scruggs.
Yeah,
those are the other OGs. If Bill Monroe's the sheriff, those are his chiefs. So, yeah.
All right.
You didn't know we were going to talk about bluegrass music, did you?
You went from Dr. King to Bill Monroe. My mind I'm still putting fragments back together.
Man, I think I've run out of brain.
No, keep going. You got to put two more people up on this mountain.
Okay, so I have the OG.
Now, I'm going to assume that music is language. Can I establish that baseline? Because the only way that my brain can connect Monroe to King is that if we have some sort of shared language. And deep within my being, I believe that music is language.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't even have to have words, because when you are composing, you are writing, you are crafting. And that hearer feels and not just hears what you're doing. Just the way that you described King, and you feel him, you don't just hear his words. So for me, this is how I'm chipping away. This is how I'm sculpting this mountain. All right? Mm-hmm. Give me another one. So now you need a Teddy, a big personality, and you need...
And he can't be a musician, right?
I mean, he can be obviously whatever, because you just took two people. You went from civil rights leader to music innovator. So I don't care what you do. All
right, so I need a Teddy. What's our main takeaway from Teddy? Are we saying Teddy's hard to handle, or are we saying Teddy...
These are your words, buddy.
Created a system of conservation and national parks?
Well, if you go hard to handle, watch this. William McKinley becomes president, and when he does, he annexes Hawaii. That's in line, well, actually, it's the opposite direction of Grover Cleveland. Also was confronted by American business entrepreneurs out in Hawaii and said, hey, we got to annex this place. We got to snatch these resources up for ourselves. There are statues still in Hawaii today of Grover Cleveland because he said, no, that's a kingdom out there. That's a people group. We will keep our interests and enterprises there, but we are not taking that place over. Now, what you need to know about McKinley is he was bankrolled by the Rockefellers and the Morgans back in the day, who obviously are not going to put their money into that powerful position unless they get something that they want. And so McKinley is all about industry and expanding beyond American borders, because eventually we will, after the Spanish-American War and the time of McKinley, drive the Spanish back to Europe, keep control politically of Cuba, snatch Puerto Rico, Guam, and even pay for the Philippines, and that will turn into an insurrection within 2 years. So 3 years maybe. So McKinley is this guy who was bankrolled into the position with these ambitions. Teddy Roosevelt has already been on the rise. He's been the police commissioner in New York City. He's working with Jacob Rees, the first flash photographer who's going into those tenements, taking those pics, going to the other side of town and going, hey, y'all need to know where the other half lives and how they're actually living.
Yeah.
Teddy is on the scene. Teddy is put into the vice presidency because, I'm now using your words, he's hard to handle. And what is the least powerful position in the American government? The vice presidency. How does Teddy Roosevelt become the youngest president in American history? McKinley gets assassinated in Buffalo. And so they had politically placed him in this, and now he becomes president. And he flips the whole script, right? He's now the trust buster. He's taken these monopolies on, strategically, of course, not all of them. He now becomes that conservationist. So I like this theme of, can you place somebody on your personal Mount Rushmore that really is kind of hard to handle, but still just busts through and becomes this thing, even though a whole section probably did not want him to be, but this whole other piece of the population is like, that's our dude. What do you think about that? You got somebody?
Man, I've got 10 somebodies. It's trying to arrive at which one I want to put on this recording. And
You have to pick one. Because
I'm just gonna pull the Band-Aid, and I'm gonna offer
as if
you,
there's some wound.
This is crazy.
Okay,
We're not talking about basketball here, but I'm talking about LeBron James.
Okay,
I'm putting him there.
I'm open. Go.
I'm putting him there. LeBron James, whether he's the greatest or not, will never be debated with Matt Paris, because I don't think we could any way compare apples to apples or oranges to oranges. I think LeBron James is one of the first greats in major sports, especially basketball, in the social media era, where everything he says, everything he does is known by the public. Okay? And, I grew up in East Tennessee, and there's, conservative white males all around me that hail and praise Michael Jordan because they watched him playing growing up. And I'm one of them. I'm one of them. We used to run out on the playground at Michigan Avenue Elementary, and we would fight over who's going to be MJ and who's going to be Scott. I'm going to be BJ Armstrong this week. I'm one of those guys. But I also know that if Michael is on the news every day, 10 times a day, being on podcasts, interviewed after every game, and it's on Twitter within minutes, I don't know we'd feel that way about it. I don't know that we would have that kind of adoration for him. Now, that leads me to LeBron James has, in my opinion, never really intended or put himself out there to try to be some political figure. I think he has said some stuff in his life that is politically divisive with those people that I've grown up around and am around all the time. They don't like it. They want this guy to just play basketball.
Just shut up and dribble.
But the whole point here is to those people, because if anybody in this country right now has haters, it's LeBron James, even though he has no major scandals. And I hope this stays true for the rest of his career, because as much magnifying glass as he's under, he would just have to say the wrong thing and it would be exploited like crazy. But these people hate him so bad that they won't even give him the credit for being the greatest scorer statistically of all time. Like, he's scored more points than anybody. Now, I'm not. Let me retract the greatest scorer of all time and just say he
has
scored
over 40,000 points.
He scored over 40,000 points.
He is the greatest scorer of all time.
He's the great. Okay, I'll go with.
Now we can bend it to the ability to score in different ways, the Kobe Bryants of the world, the takeover conversation. But I mean, you can't argue with 40,000 points.
But his haters will not even acknowledge in conversation that he's a great basketball player. That's how much they hate him.
Who are you hanging out with, man? Who's saying these things with such ferocity?
First of all, it's not who I mean, there's some people I'm hanging out with that don't like this guy.
Are you online seeing this stuff as well?
Online. This guy has websites devoted to hating him with hundreds and hundreds of thousands.
Doesn't that say something about the world we live in as well, though? I mean, like,
yeah, for sure,
gosh,
for sure.
the ability and the willingness to do
but
such things.
anything I can say in your typical East Tennessee crowd, it's a very red state, it's a very conservative place. Anything I could say about LeBron James in a positive light will instantly get spun on me that, oh, you think he's better than Jordan. And that's not the case. I've never said those words ever. I won't even debate who's the best out of that. Those guys are in different generations. But what I am saying is this is a guy that after all this, and he knows everything that I've said. If he was sitting right here, he wouldn't have a shocked face at all. I'm sure he hears all this. He feels all of it. He still doesn't change. He's not backing up because he never really attacked. You know what I mean? He's tweeted some stuff personally at times. For example, when Breonna Taylor got shot, LeBron James tweeted a very emotional, man, like something to the effect of like, I hate this. This is crap. It was just an opinion of his. And just gets destroyed on social media by white conservative males in the South for just having a view on something. And he never said anything crazy. And listen, you want to talk about police issues like that? Like, I love the profession of policing more than anybody. And I don't like it when stuff like that happens, and I don't like it when people always put all of the blame on the entire police in America for something that happened in an instant. And I still have the sense to say, you know, that's this guy's Twitter account. It's not like he called a press conference and, you know.
All right, so here's this through line that I see. LeBron can be loved or hated, and he literally doesn't have to say anything.
That's right.
I mean, what kind of personality does it take to be so polarizing, but yet still love his wife and family, seemingly so deeply, that he still has this humanity intact after 21 years of being the face of a whole entire association. Netflix has something on right now called Starting Five. Have you seen this at all?
I have saw that it's on there. I haven't watched it yet.
Sarah and I watched the first 2 episodes, and I mean, I've just, even what I said right there could just kind of alluded to, he had to carry that mantle. Or maybe he didn't have to carry that mantle, but it was given to him anyway to see what actually happens. And so we've got someone on your Mount Rushmore that is, he's bringing people together. You got your king. You've got Bill Monroe, who is bringing people into a brand new landscape, musically speaking. You've got someone whose personality is so big that he doesn't even really have to say anything important, significant, deep, dark, and still be loved or hated, but very few people in between. So now what are you going to do with this other spot? And you have like 90 seconds to articulate this.
Who's left?
Jefferson, where you kind of crafted him in a space of like his words are powerful.
All right, I'm going to name somebody, and you said this could be opinionated.
Sure. I mean,
and this, you know, maybe this is not to fruition yet popularly, but I think it will be one day. I think 50 years from now, if this person keeps going in the way they're going, we're going to look back, and I'm going to be correct about this. I could have, what makes this person difficult is I could have fit them into 3 different categories. I could have put them as the hard to handle person. I could have put them as an OG. I don't know if I could have. Maybe. But I'm going to put them in powerful words. And it's Jason Isbell. And you know me, and you know that's not a surprise.
Nope.
I believe that Jason Isbell is my generation's Hank Williams. I think he's writing things at a caliber that nobody else is writing. Some of them are very comfortable for me. Some of them are very comfortable. I can hear from a Southern boy growing up in a religious home who's had questions and confirmations and is just kind of trying to make it through this world. I can hear that in him, and that's comfortable for me. That's home. But then he'll release a song like White Man's World, and it's very uncomfortable, and it's very decisive in the town that I grew up in, or divisive in the town that I grew up in, and it's hard to. That's where I have to sort of step back and say, okay, what's he saying, and is that something that I agree with or I don't agree with? Not that always matters to me, but this is an artist who's not just writing tunes for the radio. This is the kind of guy that probably never thinks about the radio. In fact, most of his radio songs he's sold to someone else, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, he is, he's on the forefront of like legit writing. When you think of all your favorite current artists, all of them are kind of looking at this guy's writing and in awe.
And he, correct me if I'm wrong, because we've viewed that documentary, but you've done a much deeper dive, especially into his lyrics and just who he is. This dude's a conflicted soul.
He is for sure.
He's writing from some dark places, bringing some hope into that or out of that, either way. But I mean, think about Thomas Jefferson. All men are created equal. But yet we know he's writing from a place where the comforts of his home, he's being served by humans considered property. Yet he writes from this place and this phrase for this revolution that will provide hope that this will change, because it's already been set into place for over 100 years. Mm-hmm. And it will take another 70, 80, 90 years for this to change. But yet he's still able to write that for the future of a whole entire, not only a country, but the world, because we become this thing in the world mm-hmm. with the words that he crafted. But he's writing from a very conflicted place, right? Yeah. And so it's interesting of like who becomes these voices, these faces of the movement, who creates these ripples in a generation and even beyond. And the place that they're writing from so often it's not clean. It's not easy to understand. But it provides a lot of hope because, man, our own human experiences are not real clean and they're not real simple when we become a little bit more reflective and a little bit more honest with ourselves. And so those 4 people on Mount Rushmore ended up on a mountain and they end up on all kinds of posters. But they're still human. Sure. And one of my greatest pursuits as a learner and my invitation to other folks in my learning community, my students and fellow peers in learning, is that we would see even the 4 that you just placed on there. Mm-hmm. We would see their greatness for what it is.
Sure. And
we would also give space for them to remain human. Because if we do that, then that provides even hope within us to be those innovators, to be those creators, mm-hmm. to be those, yes, we will create tension in other people's lives by the way that we live through our convictions. But yet, I want to make sure that if I'm one of those folks, I don't want to live my life on an island. I still want to stay connected to others. And it would be interesting to ask a Bill Monroe, who's your people? The kind of conversations that we have.
Yeah.
Hey, LeBron, who's your people? Jason Isbell, who's your people?
Can I tell you what's intriguing about at least 2 of these guys for me?
You get 45 seconds, and then I'm telling Josh to pause because I got to get out of here.
These guys, if they got in a room and they started spouting opinions about things, I don't think we'd agree on a lot.
I don't disagree with that.
Is that wild?
No, but yes, I think it's both.
I can still recognize like what they're doing, what the world they're living in. Mm-hmm. It's mediocre people don't suffer the kind of hate that LeBron James has suffered.
Yeah,
it doesn't happen in their life. And like I said, there's probably some things we'd agree on, but there's a lot that we wouldn't, and I know that. But that doesn't make me hate a man who has displayed greatness over time. And one thing that keeps me hanging on to LeBron is, and I'm done, but my kid grew up loving this dude, and I never had to have side conversations and explain his behavior. Sure. Hey, did you hear me, Josh Moore?
Yeah.
I never had to pull my kid to the side and say, hey, LeBron got caught in this scandal with these women that were not his wife. And knock on wood, I hope that never happens with LeBron because I hope for his success. And I have appreciated sort of watching this greatness happen. But that's one thing that makes me keep my eyes on him and go, there's not a lot of mainstream celebrity type people that you can say that about anymore.
No.
Wow.
I mean, I know you got to go, but like I think about my kids. There's people my kids listen to, and like to a point, yes, I can let them listen to it. And then it's like, no, we can't listen to this. We can't.
Yeah.
And they're like, why? It's like, well, it's not good. And you try to explain to a 9 and 7-year-old, they just don't get it yet.
Yeah.
And so that makes it tough. But that's a great point, to be able to look up to someone for their whole career or lifetime as a little kid to where he's at now.
Yeah.
And say, you know what, he's done good things. I don't have to say, hey, we can't watch him anymore. We can't listen to him.
Did I say he was the greatest basketball player of all time?
Maybe.
You didn't hear me.
You did not.
I did not.
I'm pretty close to being prepared to do so. I'm pretty doggone close. Because I
it gets harder
include
and
his
harder.
character with his accomplishments, and I think it's awesome. This is why this conversation was not about mediocrity. This conversation we crafted today was about greatness, and we just mentioned some great folks.
No, I loved it. It was good talk. I think it was good to connect those. I didn't see where it was going at first, but just to connect those and just kind of create our own 4 people.
I think Josh has said that before hanging out with us. I didn't know where that was going.
Oh, I love it. Listen,
structure, man.
I know
Me too,
y'all
man.
really want me to be a
Look,
part of this conversation, and
are
I
a
really
part of
want
this.
to.
You are.
And at times I do. I have a lot to say, but it's just fun to sit here and just listen. And next time, y'all can't sit here. We're gonna have to figure this out because I'm like, I'm bouncing back and forth because I want to see your faces.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you what, it did make a difference in the flow of whatever that other sound was in the background.
For sure.
We'll see what it sounds
We'll
like
work
in the
on it.
recording.
We'll work on it for next week.
Yep.
All right, homies.
All right,
All right,
cool.
guys, thanks.
Appreciate it, guys.
Man, that's downright mindful. You've been listening to Downright Mindful with your hosts, Matt Paris and Paul Salzville. Produced by Josh Morris. Intro and outro production by Derek Kinsey. You can find us wherever fine podcasts are downloaded. Thanks for listening.